Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello, welcome to the Popternative podcast. This is the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions on the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, social media, sports, everything really depending on the guest. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis, and on social media, you know me as PD Beats. You'll recognize my guest from a lot of movies, but specifically you will recognize him as Big Mike in The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock. We were with Quinton Aaron. Quinton, welcome to Popternative.
Thank you for having me.
How's quarantine been for you so far?
It's been funny. Honestly, I have not been quarantining that much. I don't believe in living in fear. I believe that we all have our time and place when it's, when God's ready for us. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to continue to live my one life I have to live, doing things that I feel I can be more productive and helpful doing. Not living in fear of staying in my own place and domain. So
no, absolutely. So I kind of call, actors, writers, directors, musicians, producers, you're all storytellers. So when did you decide that you wanted to be a storyteller? When was that something you wanted to do?
At an early age. I grew up being bullied a lot in school, and an escape for me was movies and TV. Like the TV shows I used to watch, the movies I used to watch. I used to pretend to be those characters and live in those worlds because it was escape from my reality. And that's what innately drew me to this profession, because it's something I wanted to do as a child, and as I grew older, that love never faded. So
absolutely. And you were in Be Kind Rewind with Jack Black, which is that's a movie I feel like doesn't get as much love as it should. It's a very unique, amazing film.
Definitely. That film was a blessing to be a part of. It came very matter of fact, by the way. It's funny because one of my good friends, Jules, he was working as the extras casting director at the time, and I was just sitting at home on the couch, and he goes, "Hey, I'm working on this movie in Passaic, New Jersey, and they need a big guy. You the biggest dude I know, so you wanna be in a movie?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, all right." So went down there. That's when he told. I mean, that's when I got to set. That's when I saw who was in the movie, what it was about, and then it was crazy. I'm like, wait a minute, this is Jack Black. This is Mos Def. Oh my God, Danny Glover. It was crazy. And
you put the Lion King in the fold too.
Exactly, and
that was great. You're lying too. They look at you like, "Who's the baby who put the Lion King?" And they all look at you, and you're like, "What?"
Well, it was a good movie. It was so funny too.
No, absolutely. And then another amazing film that you were in, of course, is The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock, and one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, it's up there.
Thank you.
And obviously got a lot of respect and a lot of accolades with Sandra Bullock winning Best Actress. She won an Academy Award for that. That film. And what was that just experience like, from a learning experience, from just being on a movie of that magnitude that had such an impact down the road as well?
It was at the time unexplainable. You know what I mean? It was as an actor, you dream for an opportunity to be a part of something so special, something that plays such a big part in so many people's lives in a positive way.
Yep.
And then something that can put your career in that, catapult your career in that realm of success that you want as an actor. And so just to be a part of that film and to have that film, over a decade later be considered a classic, a cult classic, or if you will, it's unexplainable. To this day, I can't even. I feel so blessed to have met everyone I had, and just God's good.
It's one of those things like I watch a lot of interviews that the cast like Sandra Bullock did a lot of research and even wore Mrs. Tuohy's clothes for the
Hmm.
role, and it was really in depth and research wise. For you specifically, did you do any research? Like, did you meet up with Michael Orr at all? Like, what was that like?
None, actually. The unique thing about this was that I was able to be myself. So when I met with the director, um, he said, "I don't want you to meet Michael now because Michael now isn't how he was back then. And I don't want you to meet him and try and pretend to be him. I want you to be you. How would Quinton Aaron react in this situation? How would, what emotions would you bring to the table for this scene?" So the reason why people resonated with me so much in this film is because I was playing myself. I was just being me, based on the things I've been through in my life. I brought that emotion to Michael's character, and because I had never met Michael, I didn't have anything to go on as far as with him because he didn't come to set at all during the filming. He was going through combine at the time, trying to get into the NFL. So that was where his focus was at, and it played out. It worked good.
Did you meet him at any of the premieres at the events afterwards?
Um, I met him maybe like 4 years later. We were doing autograph signing in Chicago back in 2013, and that's when I first met him.
Nice. And did he say good job portraying me? Like, did he enjoy it or?
Uh, I mean, he at the time he said, "Cool, it was a good job," but I've seen articles since that stated that he was displeased with the movie itself
Yeah,
because of so
I saw an interview he did like where he just said I liked it, but they made it that in the film I never played football before. That's not true. Like, I did
yeah,
play football.
exactly.
So maybe he was
Yeah,
talking about that. Maybe not your performance. Maybe he was talking about the development of the
no.
character.
I don't think it was my
Yeah,
performance.
yeah.
It was he didn't like things about the story, like because I mean, with Hollywood, they kind of they shift some things to make it more appealing to the family as opposed to what actually happened. Like for instance, um, Michael became friends with Collins Tui before meeting the family, before anyone else. In the movie, he befriends SJ, the little kid,
Mm-hmm.
but that didn't happen in real life.
Yeah.
He played on the basketball team of the school when he first started going there. And Collins was the cheerleader, and they used to ride on the school bus together to different games, and they became friends and stuff like that. But I guess for the movie purposes, they felt like it would be more of a cuter, kind of like innocent connection to pair up Michael with the little kid SJ as opposed to Michael with a teenage girl, and just it was I
That's
don't know.
yeah. No, it's
So
it's interesting. But you know what? Like, it's one of those things where I do remember, like, there's a lot of movies that are based on real experiences that it happens. Like, I feel like a lot where they just change and spin certain things to make
Mm-hmm.
it in like different in the movie. But it is one of my favorite movies. It's weird because I'm a big sports guy, but like some of my favorite sports movies are all football movies. Remember the Titans, The Blind
Yes.
Side, The Replacements. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love Shane
Keanu
Falco, man.
Reeves.
Keanu Reeves. I love
Yes.
that movie is amazing. I love that movie.
Oh, dude, I love the part when the real football players they get, and they flip dude's car over,
Yeah.
and then what you call comes up and shoots the tires out of his
Faisal Love,
car.
yeah, he comes in.
Yeah.
Want to
Oh,
put
man,
the
I
car
love that
back?
movie.
Yeah.
Exactly. You want to put that car back now. Stop messing with my man.
I actually think though that movie, and it's funny because The Blind Side had its like funny little cute moments in it, right? But it had a
Yeah.
serious undertone, you know what I mean, and like
Mm-hmm.
the messaging, right? But The Replacements, it's like it's labeled as like a comedy, and there's a lot of comedy in it. But do you remember the scene where like Keanu, like they're in the meeting and they talk about their biggest fears? Do you remember that? And he talks about quicksand.
Yeah.
And then they talk
Yeah.
about you guys are given a second chance. Like that movie's deep. Like that movie gets
Yeah.
really deep on you.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
Exactly.
And remember the Titans, of course, is one of my favorites. So like, what do you think it is then about football movies specifically?
I think the struggle that these athletes go through, the physical turmoil they put their bodies through. I think the dedication that it takes as an athlete to devote yourself to the game. It's something that we can relate to in society, especially in today's
Yeah.
time, because a lot of what we go through, it considers us to bring that fight, to bring that, that kind of, football mentality to your day to day, because we're fighting to survive out here. You know what I mean? There's so much going on, and I'm not just talking about race. There's a whole lot of craziness going on in the world today, and it's so far beyond what one individual wants to make it about, where their selves are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with football movies, there's so many messages that you can tell, to inspire a generation, not only just the players in that game, but you can take from it the amount of, the type of mentality you need to win this game, and apply it to the type of mentality you need to win at life.
Mm-hmm.
And people want to relate to things, and they want to hear messages of hope. They want to hear ways that they can still survive their messed up situations, no matter the what's going on, what they're facing, what they're going through. And that's the thing about Michael Orr's story. This guy hadn't had his own bed until he was 17 years old. Just the thought of that, that's crazy to some people. Like, you slept on a bed all your life. You grew up on mattress after mattress. Maybe you never really thought about the comfort level of it. Maybe you never thought about the fact that you had sleep number beds all your life, and you slept like a baby all your life.
Yeah.
This man is 17 years old, never had one until this lady gave him one.
I know.
You know what I mean? Just like something like that. Just when you really grasp the concept of what he said in that moment, it's just like it hits you.
It does.
In a way that you can't even fathom. Like, if you put yourself in a position, you don't even know you can't even imagine what it's like to not have slept on a bed all your life.
And I think the messaging, I think, that movie, a lot of people were talking about that movie for a long time. Like, people were talking about that movie for a while. That was not just like a, seasonal thing where it was like 3-4 months, leading up to the Oscars. Like, people were talking about that movie for a couple years, like, especially like in my my circle as well. You know what I mean? And I think the messaging is something we always talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The hope, giving a chance when no one had a chance. You know what I mean? Giving that person the chance. There's a lot of things in that movie that we could learn from in the society. I feel like too.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
It's it's like those but it's like a feel good story. You know what I mean? That film.
Yeah.
And were you into football or were you into sports like growing up? Did you play any sports growing up?
I was mainly into basketball growing up because I grew up in the Bronx, New York, and that's basically what it was about there. It was about basketball. I knew of football. I've been a Packer fan since the Brett Favre days. I don't even know how it became. You know what? I do. I think. Um. So I have this huge crush on Cameron Diaz, and, there was a movie called "There's Something About Mary."
Yes.
And Brett Favre had a cameo in there, and this was back when I was watching football at some point in time, and I was like, "Oh wait, that's the quarterback from, the Green Bay Packers." And it was funny because I like that. I watched that movie probably like 100 times because Cameron Diaz is so fine, and and Ben Stiller is hilarious, and
I interviewed Lynn Shay, who was in that movie.
Was that
With the dog? She had the dog.
Yeah, she was hilarious. Oh my goodness, with her super tan, like she was like, oh man.
And it was because we were. It was funny because we were talking about like Insidious and her horror films that she's done.
Oh yeah.
And she was on talking about Dreamcatcher, the new film she did with Radha Mitchell and Henry Thomas from Haunting Hill House. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good horror film that's out right now. But then we were just talking. We're talking about all your amazing stuff you've done in horror. But I want to talk about like the comedy stuff. Like I want to talk about like There's Something About Mary. I want to talk about Detroit Rock City. I want to talk about like it's crazy to see that she's done so many genres. You know what I mean? It's amazing to see a lot of these storytellers, like I call them, are able to work in all these different types of projects. Like I love that.
Yes, that's the amazing thing about being an actor is the amount of projects you get to do, the amount of characters you get to play and embody, and it's funny because I like to say that people say the definition of insanity all the time as if it's a bad thing. I said, well, as an actor, we are all insane because we go into auditions doing the same thing over and over again, expecting every single no we hear to be a yes. That's literally the definition of insanity.
So I literally want to ask you this question now. Like a question I always ask on my show is, so Popternative, a little backstory. So Popternative was created to talk about everything in the entertainment and sports industry, from the big things to the small things. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. From the professional sports and the big television networks to the indie films, the college sports. So I took the alt out of alternative and I put the pop in because it's kind of all different types of things, right? So the two things that are kind of hallmarks about the show is the storytelling question, which I asked you in the intro, because it's all about telling stories and telling messages. That's all what it's about. And two, I want to have behind the scenes conversations from people like yourself that you won't get anywhere else, that in terms of perspectives of the industries as well, because you're on camera, but there's some things behind the scenes that people might not know about. So misconceptions is a question I always ask. So you kind of talked a little bit about one where the job of an actor a lot of the times is auditioning. Like people don't realize that, like you're auditioning most of the time, like that's what you guys do. And then you land a role, you go work on it, but then you're back to auditioning. Like that's what happens. You know what I mean? Anything else misconception-wise that you can think of about an actor? Like people see, Quinton Aaron, you know what I mean? He was in The Blind Side. He was in Be Kind, Rewind. Is there any misconceptions about the industry from your perspective that you can kind of
Yeah, this is a
disclose?
huge misconception.
Okay.
People think that when you're famous, you're rich. That ain't always the case.
What is even fame? Like, how do you
The
even what is fame these days? You know what I mean?
you know what? The funny thing is, famous can be the popular kid at high school that everyone knows him because he's like the king of that school. He's famous in that domain. You know, it's get famous in the industry is the same thing. You're Everyone knows who you are because of what you did, so you're famous. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're rich. Like, but the funny thing is, like in Hollywood, because you were seen where you were seen, that fame correlates to a lot of people, and it translates to them saying, "Oh my God, they're rich and famous." No, 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 no. They're just famous. They're not rich yet. Like, give it. He just started. He just started 5 minutes ago. You just seen him. He's not rich yet. I guarantee you. Nobody starts out the gate making millions of dollars right out the gate, but that's a big misconception that they have because they feel like, the moment you see somebody on the big screen, oh my God, they're the star of that movie. Oh, they have the mansion in Beverly Hills with the Lamborghini. Like, no.
So are you trying to say that when you did The Blind Side, was there a lot of those assumptions going around?
There was a lot of those assumptions. Yeah, like, and man, it was. The funny thing is, like, I rolled in a lot of circles with a lot of ballers that expected me to be able to ball on their level, and I was just like, I'm gonna go over here to the drive-through and get like some McDonald's real quick. I'll meet up with y'all later.
But
I'm going to eat over where? Like, no, you know what? I'll meet up with you. I'm gonna go get my wallet, get my chump change out the car. You know?
But another thing too that people mention too is the flow of like the work that comes in as well.
Oh, yeah.
Is a big misconception too. Like you could work for like 5 months straight and then not work for a year because you didn't get like that. It's not consistent. Like I just interviewed, I interviewed, someone who's on a show that's wrapping up now, and she told me like she does not like the show's done, right? She doesn't have like
nothing
a job right now. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Yeah,
all actors are part-time workers. You're a part-time worker unless you're a series regular on a recurring series. Like, I guess 2 shows right now that I can think of off the top of my head that have had the full-time workers are Law and Order SVU and NCIS. The NCIS shows, they've been going for years, and all
soap
of the
soap operas as well too, right?
Yeah, exactly, and soap operas. All of those shows are, every single day the same actors. Those are full-time actors.
Yeah,
because they're working.
No,
there's a reason for the saying. Theater makes you great, movies make you famous, but TV makes you rich.
Well, TV had like I feel like TV had kind of like a stigma attached to it back in the day, where it was.
It did,
and it's gone now.
It's gone now because all of the movie stars is snatching up TV roles because they understand that where the film industry is now and with how it's become over the years, it's like the only way to make money is doing, getting a TV show and hoping that it takes off. Because one, I feel like the studios kind of like messed it up for film. Now it's like the studios, instead of just doing good movies, they only want to do the multi-$100 million blockbuster hits. So that leaves all these other productions with all these other production companies with all these other great projects to go and figure it out themselves because, their budget isn't big enough for the studio who's competing with this studio who just put out a film that grossed over $1 billion. So now this studio has to do the same thing. In order for them to do it, they're not going to touch this film that's only $10 million as opposed to 50 or 100 or 150 or 250. So so it's a lot of independent production companies and filmmakers out there now, struggling to, do what they can to get their projects out because the studios ain't touching it.
No, I know. It's interesting too, and we'll see how the industry is also impacted by the times we're living in with COVID-19. I mean, it's one of those things where everything's gonna have to go back to normal at one point with proper precautions taken into place. But like
whatever normal is, I don't know. I'm hoping for a new norm,
I know,
like a better norm, because norm isn't really norm. It's idiocracy, at its best. So. I mean, the industry post whatever this is we're going through right now, hopefully it's a lot better.
No, for sure. Well, Quinton, thank you so much for coming on Popternative. Thanks so much for coming on Popternative, man.
Thank you for having me on your show.
No, absolutely. Where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date? And is there anything that they should be looking out for coming out soon or that you're working on?
I'm on Instagram. My my handle is Quinton Aaron _Big Mike, and I put that so people know I'm actually Quinton Aaron, not Big Mike. He'll be, see me. I can't say how many times people see me in the street and go, Big Mike. It's Quinton.
Does it happen a lot? Like, do you get recognized? Do you get recognized a lot for that film?
Yeah, as that guy, it's literally like, so it's it's funny because like all the times they correlate me when they see me in the streets, they think that I'm actually him, like Michael Oher, and I'm like, no, I did the movie. You see me in the movie, right? Like the actor doesn't play themselves. Like Michael Oher didn't play Michael Oher in The Blind Side.
So they've actually recognized you as like Michael Oher.
Yeah, exactly. So when they see me, they think I'm Michael Oher, and it's like, no, he didn't play himself in his life story in the movie. He's not an actor.
I often hear too, like people are also like recognized when they don't want to be recognized. I've had people come on my show and say they're always recognized when they're just going out to the grocery store, in like sweatpants. You know what I mean?
It's funny. I don't mind it. I'm appreciative of this industry, the opportunities, and I don't mind, the recognition. I get it.
Absolutely.
I'm a fan as well. I always say if I don't want to be bothered, I stay home.
Yeah. No, you're a humble guy, man. That's awesome, and you give back, which is great. And the fans, like, that movie resonated with a lot of people, man. Like, people love that movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you so much for coming on the show again, and good luck for any of your future projects and endeavors, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Definitely. You too.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. And until next time, this is Quinton Aaron and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.